What's up, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Exit Light. It is finally tournament time in America, and we are excited to break down March Madness, especially since it's coming back to Blacksburg. My name is Jackson Tate, and I am here with Colin Rudis, Zach Ellis, and Zach DeGrowie, and we're excited to be back behind the mics for another episode. It's tournament time, like I said, and things are about to get wicked here in Blacksburg, here in the rest of the country, and it's about to be a fun couple of weeks on the hardwood. But first, we got to give a couple shout outs to the boys and girls on the diamond. Uh, we just saw Hokies baseball, Hokies softball really take care of business this last week. Baseball got a huge series win against Louisville, and softball swept Pittsburgh in Blacksburg. Both teams climbing up the rankings for the first time this season. Softball has been ranked pretty much all season, but baseball just jumped into the D1 baseball rankings at number 19. It's an exciting weekend for both teams. What did you guys see on the diamond, and what has you excited for the rest of the season?
Yeah, I'll start. DeGrowie and we went to softball all 3 days, and those girls just raked and continued to rake and hit home runs. We shut them down on the mound. We hit 11 home runs on the weekend. Every single girl in that lineup is a beast, and the ACC better watch out.
Did we see? Saw a lot of tanks. Saw a bunch of those girls hit balls probably about, I don't know, Ellis, what would you say? Probably about 250, 300 feet.
Tegan's was very close to like 275. That thing went over Beamer Way and rolled to the stairs on Lincoln.
Saw a lot of great softball. Like Zach said, the ACC needs to watch out. I think we're going to see a pretty nice run out of this team. I think they can do whatever they want. I mean, they just keep playing like this. Who knows what they can do, and I'm excited for it. I'm here for it.
Something that's pretty cool and pretty interesting so far this season is, and something that's really not going to be seen in the stats book, but an interesting stat for sure, is that Virginia Tech baseball and Virginia Tech softball lead the nation in combined home runs. Obviously, that's not something that people are going to be counting, but Virginia Tech softball is second in the nation in total home runs, only to Miami, Ohio. And Virginia Tech baseball leads the nation in home runs per game. They're hitting tanks in Blacksburg. They are absolutely nuking the baseball, and that's something that's really going to push them to new heights this spring. Um, you know, we kind of talked about it last episode that they need the pitching, they need the defense to really work. But if the bats are that hot, I think you're really going to see a run from both these teams. We'll talk a little bit about some star performances over the last week for our teams, but you have players that are just crushing the baseball right now, and baseball is a streaky sport. So if you can keep that, energy, to keep that going all season, it's going to be good for Virginia Tech.
I want to say one thing. I want to shout out Pitt. Thank you for wearing the blue jerseys this weekend. It was very good to see another team losing Blacksburg in blue jerseys.
Yeah, and for Virginia Tech softball, it's you can really say that the ACC is no slouch with any team. Every team that comes through Blacksburg or we hit the road for, they're going to be good, and winning a series in the ACC is huge. And Virginia Tech has what is that, 3 straight sweeps? Am I correct on that? Yeah, that's 3 straight sweeps to start the ACC season, and that's big. That's 9-0 on. That's 9-0 right off the get go. That's something that's really going to help them down the road. We have big series coming up against Alabama this weekend. That's a non-conference, but also Duke and Florida State, and teams that we don't get to see a lot. But we're going to get to play them, and we're going to really have to make some waves against them to do some damage in the ACC. Yeah, and so we obviously swept Pitt this last weekend, and that's 3 straight sweeps to start the season against Notre Dame, against Louisville, and then back at home against Pittsburgh. And there's no easy team in the ACC. ACC softball is pretty dang good, and just getting those 3 series wins, those 3 series sweeps to start the ACC regular season, that's huge. That's really going to pay dividends down the road. If the girls keep hitting the softball like they are, they're going to really do some damage. They're really going to make waves in the ACC. They're really going to be pushing themselves to new heights, and there's no ceiling for the team. And that's kind of the same with baseball, if you guys want to talk about that too.
I just want to give a huge shout out to Carson DiMartini. He is D1 Player of the Week. He had 9 hits on the week, and 7 of them were home runs. And he had 11 RBI, and that's just an insane week. So, big time shout out, D1 Player of the Week. That's huge.
Yeah, I think it's funny. We were in the softball game, and I was sitting next to Zach, and we were scoreboard watching because we just didn't turn on the baseball game. And we looked and saw DiMartini had 2 home runs, and we saw he was coming up. So we're like, all right, let's turn it on. And this dude hung a curveball, and he crushed. He had 3 at-bats and 3 home runs. And at that point in the third inning, 7 of our 9 hitters already had a hit in the game, which is a testament to how much we hit the ball now.
Yeah, I kind of have two things. The first, Carson DiMartini, if he keeps hitting the baseball like he has been over the past couple weeks, he is going to skyrocket up the draft prospect boards, and that's something you want to see out of our athletes. We want to see our players succeed, and you know, Colin, and this is something you pay a lot more attention to than I do, but he's sitting kind of like top 100 prospects so far. Um, but he's gonna go up the boards if he keeps hitting keep hitting the baseball like he has been.
I want to say at the start of the year, he was number 43
Yeah,
or something like that. But I mean, going back to the whole ACC being good thing, they had I want to say in the top 50, they had at least 15 players. Wake Forest Wake has 5 in the top 15. They're insane. But, this is obviously about Carson. Yeah, Carson's number 43. But like you said, I mean, if he keeps doing what he's doing, he's going to end up being a first rounder.
and the second thing I kind of want to talk about, just something funny I saw on Twitter, today is somebody on Twitter was like, yeah, Carson DiMartini deserves ACC Player of the Week and NCAA Player of the Week, and somebody was like, it's like, why does that mean that nobody else had good weeks? Kind of trying to make like a smug rebuttal. And like the person responded, he's like, no, it wasn't because anybody was not good. It's because Carson DiMartini was just that much better than everybody else. And then he went on to say, the only person that comes close to him was Micheletti, who has homered in 5 straight games, and I believe he has 6 homers in the last 7 games or something like that. Um, it's just crazy to think that there's not one, but 2 players that are having absolute burners over the past couple weeks.
So I think another thing that was really good to see this weekend was our pitchers. They held their own. They actually pitched really well Saturday and Sunday. So I think the production that we keep getting out of them is really gonna lift us to unexpected heights that maybe we didn't really foresee right off the bat this season, like Jackson had touched on. So I think I think they're just doing their job. I mean, they're only freshmen too, so as in terms of the future for the Hokies bullpen, I think we're in for a pretty good ride, and I think they got it.
Yeah, Griffin Steig had that great start on Sunday, and Brady Kirtner in relief was huge on Saturday. So really, really looking forward to more baseball and softball here coming spring.
Yeah, and the spring's going to be an exciting time in Blacksburg, but first things first, let's talk a little bit about March Madness and the tournament coming back to Blacksburg for the second straight season. As of right now, second straight season where the entire weekend will be sold out for both the first round and the second round. And this time around, we get to host a little bit of a play-in action tomorrow. I think it's Wednesday, Wednesday afternoon, Wednesday night. And it's a bunch of really good basketball that's going to be coming through Cassell Coliseum this weekend. Um, we get to see Virginia Tech and Marshall, which is obviously our top priority, but we also get to see Baylor take on the winner of Vanderbilt and Columbia, who will they'll play Wednesday afternoon, Wednesday night. Starting off this season, it was pretty obvious that we had our sights set on making another run this year and putting a really good team together and kind of reaching the heights that we reached last season by making a Final Four and putting a great team on the floor and really making waves. And so far this season, we've pretty much achieved those expectations. We've had a little bit of a struggle over the past 2 or 3 weeks, just due to injuries and just a couple losses and bad times. But truthfully, it doesn't take anything away from the accomplishments that this team has provided and accomplished this season. And they were rewarded for that. Despite the recent struggles, they held on to a 4 seed, and they weren't number 16 overall. I think they were actually turned into like 14 overall, which is pretty. That's I would say that's pretty decent compared to or considering what happened at the ACC tournament and over the past couple weekends or past couple games of the regular season. But nonetheless, Virginia Tech's going to be taking on the Marshall Thundering Herd on Friday at 3:30, and let's just break down the keys to the game and what it's going to take to take down Marshall.
So I think what we're kind of looking for here is what has Kenny Brooks and the ladies really done in their about week and a half off from basketball, almost 2 weeks now. Yeah, 2 weeks from that Friday. So we'll see what they've been doing in practice. We know that Kenny did kind of mention after the tournament that one of the sets that they ran, since they only had a day and a half to really prep without Elizabeth Kitley playing in the ACC tournament, was a summer ball set, which was literally just keyword for, just score, go get a bucket somehow, some way. So I think we're going to see them running more plays confidently with Clara Strack and Karis Baker and everybody else. So I'm looking to see how those plays actually go out. And I think you're going to see a team that's more dialed in on their shooting as well. So I think those keys are just going to be playing together as a whole, hitting your shots, and also playing great defense, because I think Rudy was going to mention that Marshall loves to shoot the three ball a lot.
So yeah, Marshall, they average 86.4 points a game. That's third in the country. They have one girl who averages 21 points a game, another one who averages 16, another one who averages 15, another one who averages 14.8. Obviously, they shoot the ball well. I think another thing that's going to be very crucial, and it plays into Tech's favor, they don't have big girls. Like Marshall's tallest player is 6'1", so I think that can play into that can be very favorable for Tech.
I would actually have to agree with that. I think, let's assume that Liz Kitley is not able to play, and really from that standpoint, you need to avoid matchups where we're playing against a big that maybe Claire Strack is a step behind or Rose Mishaw is a step behind, and I think we kind of avoid that in a perfect manner right now. We have great perimeter defense, and we've talked about that all season. It's not the flashy steal the ball Hannah Hidalgo defense, and you don't typically see the flashy Aaliyah Boston block the ball off her dome defense for Virginia Tech. But we're very sound defensively, where they're contesting every shot and they're playing good defense, and sometimes those teams hit those shots like you saw in Charlottesville against UVA and against Notre Dame. But a lot of times, like when you saw against North Carolina State, we're playing good defense to the point where we can force them to be off their game, and I think that's a really good matchup for Tech heading into Friday's game against Marshall. You talk about size; their tallest player is 6'1", Mahogany Matthews, and I can't envision that Rose Mishaw or Claire Strack or honestly anybody who's playing defense for Virginia Tech in the paint is going to really let that girl take over, because we have the height advantage, and this is something that we've talked about before. But there's other than Georgia Amore, I'm pretty sure every girl is over 5'10" or 6 foot. Pretty sure Kenny's talked about that before. So let's say every player on our team, other than Georgia Amore, and I guess obviously Samaya, like at least in the rotation, is above 6 foot, and that's huge for Virginia Tech in multiple ways. Obviously, they're going to be able to play good defense. That's really going to force Marshall to, I would assume, to be one dimensional in what they're shooting. They shoot a lot of threes per game, but it's going to turn into, if Virginia Tech can play good defense, good sound, strong defense, I really think Virginia Tech's going to, be on the positive side of a mismatch.
Yeah, I think going off those points, I think the biggest thing for us is working down low. We have the height advantage, so Clara can have a field day. So if they're not a scrappy defensive team, I know they really turned the ball or forced turnovers against JMU when they played in their conference tournament. But I don't know how scrappy they are like Notre Dame. But with the tallest girl, like you said, being 6'1", Clara should be able to score at will. She can shoot over them. She's got a nice mid range. And then really finding the rhythm from three. We went super cold there at the end of the regular season and in the tournament. So if we start knocking down our shots, we're going to be able to shoot over them.
It kind of reminds me of, kind of the way that Duke played us. The both times in the regular season, Duke was just very, very active defensively, and they really slowed down the pace and like they just really stopped our actions offensively. And I think, obviously Virginia Tech is not as quick as Duke was. Duke has those guards that are just, they're just nuts in anticipation, and they're just, always on the ball. I don't think Virginia Tech really has that edge, but um, I think Virginia Tech's going to be able to slow the pace they've played in the Sun Belt down a lot, and that's really going to help them on Friday. Something that we really need to see. We need to see Kayla King and Matilda Eck hitting shots. Um, I don't necessarily think that Matilda needs to be one dimensional in shooting threes. I think Matilda needs to actually drive a little bit. I think she shows a lot of you know I don't a lot of potential in terms of scoring when she drives the ball, because she's also a pretty good passer as well. And I think that really opens the offense up, especially if Liz isn't playing. Clara, if Clara's if Clara has a mindset where if she's able to get quick safe passes out, and we're driving with Matilda, we have somebody playing the four that's really doing the right things with the basketball. Georgia's going to be hot. If Kayla's hitting shots too, there's really not anybody in the tournament that can stop us because we're still that good. But I think that we have a really strong shot against Marshall on Friday. Um, I don't think it's fair for us to look ahead so much right now, given the fact that last time we looked ahead to North Carolina in the ACC tournament, we laid an egg against Florida State in their not blue jerseys. But let's just talk a little bit about the path that we have in the NCAA tournament on the women's side. Obviously, if we get past Marshall here, we're going to get the winner of Baylor and the winner of Columbia and Vanderbilt. What do you guys think about the path, the regionals, and the kind of the road to Cleveland that we're going to have to follow if we're going to get back there?
So I think what's really interesting about this regional this year is that USC is in this region, Ohio State, UConn, and also Duke. So we have Duke obviously familiar from 2 times this year, and we have those other teams familiar from last year. Obviously, it beat Ohio State. However, but let's not to look ahead like Jackson said, but there's still a lot of talent on this team, so I'm always going to remain very confident in these girls. So let's assume that they do make it to the Sweet 16. Obviously, they would play USC, who has Juju Watkins and not a slouch team with any means by whatsoever. However, I just think that, like Jackson said, this path is not impossible. If we wanted to make another run like last year, our group is no slouch. I think it's really just gonna these 2 games at Cassell can lift these girls with all the confidence in the world. They love playing at Cassell. I think coming back from a really physical and unfortunate road stretch that they had, obviously, they needed the rest, and I think all the practice time and everything that goes into it, they're going to get a big boost from the crowd and the general public here at Blacksburg that if they just gel up some things, get everything rolling, and who knows, maybe Liz does come back for the Sweet 16. We don't know, but we'll have to see. Obviously, the road is not impossible, but it will be tough. But I think if they just stick to what they want to do, Kenny said it when the ACC play started at the very beginning of the year. You guys can be as good as you want, and I think that they're going to do just that. So I'm confident in it.
I kind of went off on a tangent last time we talked, saying that like if Virginia Tech didn't have Liz Kitley, I don't know how far they're going to be able to go, and I truthfully don't think that's true. I do think that the past 2 weeks, have been really beneficial for Virginia Tech because they got a lot of time to develop chemistry without Liz Kitley, if that is to be the case this weekend and moving forward. I did notice in Kenny's media session with the ESPN people yesterday that he was talking about a lot of this past week has been individual instruction, and he's gotten a lot of one-on-one time with a lot of his players. And I think that's really big too. He's been able to dissect the film that he saw in Greensboro and help those players develop some things that maybe he didn't think were great, instill some confidence in the players, and really kind of polish and fine tune the girls for what's going to happen in this run. Um, I do think that it's really beneficial that we host. Obviously, a 4 seed is not where we thought we were going to be and not where we wanted to be, but regardless, we have the best fans in America. Right beside the court all weekend long, and if we can get past Marshall, it's going to be a tough battle against Baylor on Sunday. But once again, we have the crowd, we have the electricity that is Cassell. We've won big games in Cassell this season, and it's something that Baylor does not have. They're the farthest team away out of the 5 teams that are coming to Blacksburg, and I think Virginia Tech's Hokie Nation is gonna show up and really push Virginia Tech to have a great weekend. Um, I don't want to look. I really don't want to look farther ahead than that, because USC and Juju Watkins is so good. But like we said, if we're hitting the shots, if we're we're checking off the boxes and the keys to winning that we established, I really think Virginia Tech still can beat anybody.
Jackson, I'm glad you touched on the not wanting to look ahead part because it really looks like you're looking ahead that we're playing Baylor. And I'm actually really interested in this Columbia team. They're an Ivy League school and they got in as an at large bid, which you never see that happen. I don't know if it's ever happened in men's. I can't remember a time happening in women's. And looking at their team, they went 13-1 with their only loss being Princeton, which last year Princeton won a game in the tournament. They beat NC State. And looking at their games, they lost to Duke by 4. They lost to 2 SEC teams in close games. And they could give Baylor a run for their money. I don't know if I'll be able to go see the game against Vanderbilt here, but I'm really interested to see if they can do something because I was listening to a clip of their coach, and they were saying, "Why are you putting these SEC teams in? They go 15-14." Or like Colin texted me yesterday. I think Tennessee was like 17-14 or something crazy, and they got a 6 seed. And this coach was going on a tangent about you're putting these SEC biased teams in over a really good Ivy League school. So I'm interested to see that potential matchup. And if Columbia beats Vanderbilt, they might be able to steal a spot from Baylor. And then also looking ahead in our bracket, a potential Duke-Ohio State matchup in that 2-7. I think that could be fun because Duke's best player from last year, Celeste Taylor, transferred to Ohio State. And she was really like their heart last year. And you see Duke completely turned it around. They got it going. So if they can play their old teammate in that second round, I think that's a really interesting matchup.
Yeah, and I'm making the mistake of looking ahead too much, assuming that we're going to play Baylor. But truthfully, our region is kind of the region of unknowns. Truthfully, like there's a bunch of upsets that could happen, including for us, including against us. And I really don't think you can look forward to anything other than just the game at hand. Um, I think both the 8-9s in the region are good enough to beat USC in the second round. USC plays in the Pac-12, and you've seen that the Pac-12 has had, they've had chinks in their armor all season. They've a bunch of those teams have struggled against teams that they really should not have lost to. So I think it's going to be really interesting to see who advances down the road. But obviously for Virginia Tech, we're just hoping that it's one game at a time. Just taking care of business, day in, day out, and, just beating the team at hand, in hopes that we can make another run. Obviously this time next week, we're going to know whether our next game is next season or if we're moving on to Portland. But I'm excited to see it happen. We're excited to be in Cassell this weekend. Just cheering on the Hokies, getting loud. We're really hoping we get to see Liz Kitley play one or two more times in Cassell. But alas, we are going to be there for the Hokies, getting loud, getting rowdy, and making Cassell the electric environment that it is. Speaking of electric environments inside of Cassell Coliseum, men's basketball got a bid to the NIT. Actually got the ACC's auto bid with Pittsburgh declining their NIT bid. And that means Virginia Tech is going to host the NIT tomorrow afternoon, Tuesday night, against our in-state rival, maybe not rival, but in-state foe, the Richmond Spiders. All season it's been the let's hit shots, let's play good defense, let's rebound the basketball story for Virginia Tech men's basketball. And it's been that up and down season where some days they check off those boxes and some days they don't. Uh, let's what are you guys looking forward to in terms of the NIT and how this tournament can go for Virginia Tech, but also just what are your feelings, regarding the NIT and, falling short for our ultimate goal, that is the NCAA tournament?
I feel that it's a good opportunity, to be able to have this at home. Last year it was on the road against Cincinnati. Unfortunately, we didn't come out on top with that one, but I think to be able to have the opportunity to, watch our team play one more time in Cassell, I know it's not the outcome everybody wanted, but everybody's still going to support this. Everybody's still going to support this team. So I think it's good for the community. It brings everybody together. The men's always going to get all of our support, and obviously, we would have loved to see them make the actual tournament. That is, but they didn't win enough on the road. There were some key games that even at Cassell, they probably should have picked up on, but. I do feel good about this game because it is at home in Cassell. If this was on the road against Richmond, the Spiders really are no slouch. So, maybe I feel a little different, but this is in Cassell. I like our men's team against just about anybody not named UConn in Cassell. So, feeling good about it. I think it'll be fun, and I think it's just gonna be a good time overall to see at least Hunter play one more time at Cassell.
I just want to say, shout out to NIT for, one more thing is giving Tech the opportunity to end what was a pretty down year on potentially a high note. Hopefully they could get one last run going, like we said all season, hit your shots, play good defense, yada, 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 sound like a broken record. But, theoretically they're playing against teams that aren't as good as what's in the ACC. Granted, isn't there another ACC team in there? Or no, it's like Ohio State or something.
We have
that's
Wake.
like Texas
Wake
level.
Wake's the
Forest is in
one,
there.
Ohio State's the two. And
There,
ours.
Wake is there. Okay.
And Boston College.
So, yeah. So they're playing teams that they've already beat this year. And other than that, teams that may or may not be on a lower level than them. So hopefully they can go on one last run and end the year on a high note.
Yeah, and my favorite part about the NIT matchup is that we get to play Richmond, and you don't get to see a lot of in-state games for Virginia Tech other than UVA. And every once in a while you'll get to play ODU in a like a non-con tournament, or maybe a couple team, maybe Liberty or maybe Richmond, like on a secret scrimmage in the preseason. But not often in the regular season when things are clicking, or not in the postseason when things are clicking. And that's exciting because I'm sure there's going to be a good amount of Richmond fans that make the trip to Blacksburg to see their team play. It's a good Richmond team, a team that won the regular season in the Atlantic 10, and that's against Dayton, who's in the tournament, and against Duquesne, who is also in the tournament, VCU, Loyola Chicago. They played good teams and they beat good teams this season, and it's a matchup that is going to be exciting. Richmond's a good team. They are a solid team, and it's going to be some good quality, like tier 2 postseason basketball in Cassell Coliseum Tuesday night at 9 o'clock. I selfishly do wish that game was a little bit earlier in the day. That way, there would be more fans there. But I'm sure the students are going to show up and show out and make that place loud, and kind of just kick off the NIT and see who advances through that bracket. But honestly, the talk of the town and the talk of America is the big bracket, March Madness, the NCAA tournament on the men's side. And I figured, just in the spirit of March, we'd talk a little bit about, like what we see in the bracket this season, where our upset allegiances lie, and, who we have in the Final Four national champions, and, who are our dark horses and our Cinderellas. Um, if you guys want to like talk about like what you kind of see in the bracket, what things you think are going to stick out, who's going to surprise you.
Well, so I got a few notes here. So one of the things that I wanted to kind of kickstart out with is, should it come down to, let's say, the Elite Eight, if I looked at this correctly, I like Arizona advancing to the Final Four over UNC. I have lost all faith in Purdue when they have been ranked as at least a decently high seed. Give me Kansas over Purdue if they see them. I have Tennessee also winning that Midwest region. Marquette's a pretty cool name, and they got a pretty cool color scheme going on there. So maybe them as an upset over Houston. I really don't like UNC, so should it come to extra dinosaur mode, I like St. Mary's over UNC. If it came down to a definite Final Four selection, I like Arizona, UConn, Tennessee, and Marquette. And also, if anybody else had to beat Houston, give me Texas A&M. Give me Buzz freaking Williams. Give it to me. Bag it, cash it, tag it. What I like. UConn's winning it all.
ZDG, you said Marquette has cool jerseys, right?
They wear blue.
You know they wear blue sometimes, right? It's interesting. You said if you see Kansas and Purdue playing, I don't know much about Samford, but I think whoever wins this Gonzaga Nice game is going to knock off Kansas. Their best two players are hurt, Hunter Dickinson and Kevin McCullough, I think. And they've been streaking downward. They're not even winning at home, which that's like their bread and butter. So, yeah, I don't see Kansas making Sweet 16 at all.
They're out.
I wouldn't be surprised if Samford beat them.
Samford's a bunch of hoopers, dude. They're upsetting them.
You got
that
Samford.
Is one thing. I had the bracketology thing on the other night, and they were showing their highlights, and they do not miss. I would not be surprised if Samford knocks off Kansas round one.
I wouldn't be surprised if McNeese knocks off Gonzaga, to be honest.
Yeah.
I saw McNeese, they had like one conference loss, and I watched their conference tournament, and they got some ballers on that team. I haven't made my picks yet. I got a couple sleepers, though. I don't know if I'd pick UAB over San Diego State, but I wouldn't be surprised if that would happen.
Mm-mm.
I could see
State, they're on their redemption tour.
Yeah, I don't know. They just haven't been impressive this year. I wouldn't be surprised if Auburn actually upset UConn in the Sweet 16. I could see them making a run. Drake is going to beat Washington State and be in a battle with Iowa State. Alabama, that team can shoot, but they do not play defense. So I think if St. Mary's can get past Grand Canyon, which I've heard a lot of people saying Grand Canyon could upset them, I think St. Mary's would take down Bama. Nevada, they're going to beat Dayton. Easy money. New Mexico is not upsetting Clemson. Stamp that one. When the bracket came out, I saw Wisconsin at the 5, and I've never been a believer in Wisconsin. So I said, whoever this 12 is going to be, I'm picking them. And me and my roommate both hate JMU. We're watching this together, and we see JMU pop up. I can't do it. I have to pick Wisconsin now.
JMU's beat Wisconsin, and
I hate JMU.
They're beating Duke.
I hate them. They're not doing it.
No.
They're not going to do it.
Wisconsin
No,
and they're beating
Wisconsin is
Duke.
high. Wisconsin is high, but JMU is folding that one. I'm not listening to the JMU
No,
Duke individuals.
no. I've
That's
watched,
what I'm
I've
saying.
Losing.
watched that JMU team play in person, and they are not bad.
Nah, I
It,
just can't do it out of my heart. It's like picking UVA
however,
for me.
if I could, Zach Ellis brought up a great point.
Let's go
I
back to
also
this
have
MJ Collins jumper real quick.
no. We're not going back to MJ Collins jumper. We'll go back to that when we do a review on the NIT game. What I wanted to touch on was at the very bottom of my March Madness notes from 3 years ago. No, 5 years ago. Never trust Gonzaga to blow their own nose in the tournament, so I don't even think they get past the round of 32. So I will just put that here for everybody to see.
So like the
Or
I
listen
McNeese
to.
mean,
pick
they
I
are
had. Okay,
overrated
I'm glad you
every
Yes.
said
year.
that. Sleeper pick. This is I know Jackson want to touch on this later, but I'm gonna bring it up now. Sleeper Final Four pick for me would be Florida. They've been balling out. I know they just lost their leading rebounder, but I think they're my sleeper. Um, UVA not getting out of the first four. Colorado State's beating them. And keep an eye on those Peacocks.
I have a team theoretically, if they were to go on a run, they're hot right now. NC State potentially making a run. Granted, they got to get past Texas Tech, who's not a bad team, and then they would have to play Kentucky, who's also not a bad team. But Kentucky's proven themselves beatable this year. They lost to Texas A&M, so and then they would play Marquette or Florida theoretically after Kentucky. So I think if NC State stays hot, I wouldn't be surprised if they went on a run. But then I think they ultimately meet their demise against Houston.
So here's my special thing. Um, I don't know if we can call a 10-7 an upset, especially in the first round. But I think once you get to the second round, you could classify either of those teams as kind of a dark horse or a Cinderella. Um, and I have to say that my dark horse slash Cinderella for this season has to be Nevada. Um, so then hear me out before you roll your eyes and get crazy out on me. Nevada plays Dayton in the first round. Dayton is a team that has beaten zero teams that are in the field this year. They have beaten absolutely zero teams that made the NCAA tournament. They are also playing in Salt Lake City. If you guys know anything about geography, that you know that Salt Lake City is a lot closer to Nevada than it is Dayton, Ohio. And I think the Wolfpack are going to take down Dayton in the first round. I don't think, I know it's kind of bad for me to hate against Dayton, knowing my friendships, but I think Nevada is going to take down Dayton in the first round, and then I think that they are going to kind of just traverse the the bracket pretty easily and make a run. I think they're kind of an under the radar pick. I know the Mountain West has not performed well in the tournament as of recent years. Everybody always says that the Mountain West deserves 5, 6, 7 bids, and each year they just blow it. And I think it was last year or the year before they lost all 6 of their first round games and were out of the tournament with all their teams by the end of the second day. Um, I'm not saying that won't happen again because I know the Mountain West is overrated. But I do think that the Mountain West will get a team to the second round this year with Nevada. And I also wouldn't be surprised to see them get a second with New Mexico over Clemson because Clemson is not good.
That's actually really funny you say that because there's always one of those ACC teams that's just not that good that goes on a run for no reason, and I actually have them going to the Final Four. It's so funny, but there's always one of those ACC teams that's just not good that goes far for no reason. And it was UNC 2 years ago when they played Duke in the Final Four. They were an 8 and they went to the Final Four. So I mean, I think Clemson is that team, and then I have not going to the Final Four, but going to the Elite Eight. I have the Cox of South Carolina. I think they take a little run, and for my buddy Trevor, go Cox.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that. Oregon always plays well in March, but I think South Carolina's actually they played really well, and I would not be surprised if they do make that Elite Eight run. Because if they get by Oregon, they're probably playing Creighton, who they're so hit or miss. The Big East is another team. They either do really well or they stink. And then I mean potential Tennessee matchup, but Tennessee in March also stinks. So South Carolina could make a run as much as it pains me to say that.
Um, so I kind of, when I was looking at my brackets earlier today, I kind of decided to take a more analytical approach, just because I'm tired of finishing last in my bracket groups, based on feelings. And so I came across this thing called the trapezoid of excellence, and I don't know if you guys have ever seen this on any social media platforms, but I found it on Reels. I found it on Instagram, and I kind of just looked into it a little bit more. Basically, it's a XY axis, and it's pace of play versus it's a pace of play crossed with their adjusted net rating. And so basically, what will happen is you'll get the teams that are at the top, like the middle of pace of play, but their net rating is higher. And typically, you'll get your national champions, Final Four teams, and even the teams that make the Cinderella runs will always be in that trapezoid. The only outlier being really Virginia in 2019 because you know that they play slow. Looking at this year's matrix for all the teams, um, there are a bunch of teams that I see that are really outside of that trapezoid, and one of those teams they're really far one way, like really high pace of play, but they're not really inflated by their net is Kentucky, and Kentucky plays Oakland in a 3-14 game, and I think it's interesting that people have Kentucky going on a lot of runs when truthfully I don't know if Oakland won't beat Kentucky in the first round. Truthfully, I don't know if any of you guys have looked at that one, but I don't think I think that's one that we should look out for.
I'm glad you said that. I don't think Kentucky's going on a run this year, like you see in the past. Their freshmen are really good, but I don't. I could see whoever wins this Texas Tech NC State game taking down Kentucky if they do get past Oakland. And if Kentucky does manage to win that, like I said, if Florida gets there, I don't see them beating Florida.
Um, it's something I do have to say about Kentucky. Kentucky has not been healthy all season. They've had a lot of injuries the entire season, so they really have not developed a lot of chemistry with their entire starting lineup throughout the season. And I feel like that's kind of why you've seen them be decent, but really struggle in big games when it gets hard for them. They don't really pull it off. Oakland is kind of a veteran team. Their team's a lot of seniors and juniors. Um, and so I don't mean to make the out of left field you know upset pick, but I think if there were to be a three losing to a 14, I think that my pick would have to be Oakland over Kentucky. Um, Colin, you talked about South Carolina making a little bit of a run. I think Oregon wins that game in the first round. I think uh, I think Dana Altman is just a great March coach. You always see him make runs. Um, Funny enough, those teams were both in the Final Four in the same year. I want to say 2017, and I think both those teams lost. So it's been a while coming for them to have a little bit of March success, but you know that it's kind of in that their program DNA. Um, Colin said Clemson to the Final Four. I said New Mexico over Clemson in the first round. Uh, um,
Also, give me Boise State over Florida.
Yeah, I was gonna say if Boise actually wins that game, that's the one that I think if Florida's gonna get upset,
I just want to say
Boise's
that
gonna
Boise
beat
State
them.
lost to Virginia Tech, and Virginia Tech men's basketball has not been good this year.
So did Iowa
Yeah,
State.
but Iowa State also
Yeah,
did
that's
when
why
you
they're
look at
going to
that.
lose in the second round.
All right, going off that point, do y'all have a double-digit seed that you see going to the Sweet 16? Because I don't know last time there wasn't a double-digit seed.
I've already
I have a dark horse that
AMU,
I think should get put in here, and I think that we should
James
all gather
Madison
around.
University. They're doing it. They're beating Duke.
Vermont, book it. You can put that in there. They are an excellent lock every year, and I'm feeling Vermont as a dark horse.
So you have Vermont to the Sweet 16?
Perhaps.
I also could see Sanford doing it. If they beat Kansas, then I think they beat Gonzaga because Gonzaga's overrated every year.
Jackson, who you got?
If I were to pick a double-digit seed advancing to the Sweet 16 or beyond, I think it might have to be. I mean, you've already talked a little bit about McNeese being a bunch of shooters. They also have one of the best records in the entire nation across the year. Um, but Grand Canyon for me, I think Grand Canyon's in a good spot. They're a good team, and if there weren't a lot of bid stealers, they would typically be a lower seed. But there were a bunch of teams that stole bids this year, and they kind of got bumped up on a seed line to the 12 seed, and I think that's going to be really beneficial for them. I think they're going to pull off an upset, and as you know, once something happens in March, it can happen again. So um, I think Grand Canyon might be one of those teams. Also Nevada, but you guys have already heard me talk a little bit about that. Let's talk a little bit about Final Four picks, and we've talked a lot about dark horses, Cinderellas. But if you're picking a bracket based on your gut feelings, the stats, everything that you've seen this season in men's basketball, who are your Final Four? We'll start with Colin.
So I have a fun side of my bracket, which is the East and West, and then South and Midwest. I feel like, I mean, obviously we got proven wrong last year that Purdue is, beatable as a 1 seed, but I think they're better this year, and I think they're going to go. I think it's going to be them in Houston in the Final Four on that side. But then, like I said earlier, Clemson. But I think San Diego State gets the redemption, and I have them playing Houston in the championship and taking it.
So, as I'd said, my Final Four, I think I'm gonna have to ride with Arizona, UConn, Tennessee, and Marquette. And I just got a feeling about those. Uh, I think if I had to swap any though, it might be Houston in there over Marquette. One that I would kind of just like to see for funsies though would probably be Creighton though, but I don't know. I think I'm gonna have to stick with the first initial Final Four prediction, but I mean, it's March, so I'll probably be wrong.
Yeah, when I do brackets, I always do one with what I think's gonna happen, and then one where I have a little fun with it. So, like I said, I haven't officially done mine yet, but I could see Auburn coming out of the East, upsetting UConn. I don't think Iowa State gets past Drake, and if they do, I don't think they get past Illinois. So I got Auburn in that one. I agree with Arizona in the West. The South, I just think Houston has relatively easy path. And we talked about the Midwest, Purdue always stumbling in March, but they really have the easiest path. So I think that's where the upsets are going to be. I really, I don't know with that one. I don't think Purdue comes out of it. I could see, honestly, the winner of the South Carolina Oregon game going to the Final Four. So I'd have to go with Houston, and then I hate saying it. I think Auburn with Houston coming out on top.
Word. So I think my Final Four this season, I think UConn is gonna squeak by Auburn in the Elite Eight. Actually, I mean the Sweet 16. And I think the winner of that game is going to go to the Final Four. But I think it's going to be UConn. I think Arizona comes out of their region. I think Houston is going to bounce back from their demolition at the hands of Iowa State. And then I think our fourth team is going to be Creighton. I know you said you love them. You think they're kind of a fun team. I think that they are solidly a much better team than they were last year, and I believe they were a game away from advancing to the Sweet 16 or to the Final Four last year. They lost to San Diego State, and I think that they're going to overcome. They're going to exercise those demons, finally get to a Final Four, and then I think that Connecticut is going to go back to back. I think Connecticut is the best team in men's basketball this year. They've had a couple of weird losses, but they just won the Big Ten tournament, or the Big East tournament, and I think they're gonna go back to back. Um, I think I think Hurley's a great coach, and I think he's just kind of lit a fire under that program, and I think they're gonna go back to back. So a lot of UConn, a lot of Arizona, a lot of people thinking Caleb Love's going to have some March magic again. I would like to see Arizona play Duke. Aren't they in the same region? No, Arizona.
Learn
Arizona is in
regions.
the same region as North Carolina. My fault. I
Yeah,
want to see Caleb Love play North Carolina in the Elite Eight, and I want to see Caleb Love torch them. Um,
I want to see the Caleb Love versus RJ
so
Davis matchup for Deja Kelly.
yeah,
Well, real quick though, I know we are talking a lot about Arizona. I would like to say that I did trust them 2 years ago before they got upset. So I am putting a lot of faith, a lot of confidence in them this year. So please don't let me down again, like Gonzaga did 2 years in a row. So please.
yeah, a lot of really fun talk about brackets and what we think is going to happen in the madness side of things this spring, heading down into April. It's going to be a fun 2.5-3 weeks. I think there's going to be a lot of fun. I can't wait to be able to watch some games with you guys this weekend in Blacksburg. It's going to be fun, like kind of watching on our phones and keeping track of everything going on. But nonetheless, a bunch of fun picks, a bunch of fun conversations. We can't wait to see it unfold in front of our eyes. We're really looking forward to some women's madness in Blacksburg this weekend. Hoping Virginia Tech can beat Marshall and advance to the round of 32, and then hopefully kind of set their way on to another run this spring. Um, yeah, and it's gonna be a good time. It's gonna be a great postseason to be a basketball fan. There's a bunch of awesome matchups on the women's side that we didn't really talk about because we're kind of still focused on our team. But the women's tournament is going to be absolutely nuts. There's an Iowa LSU rematch in the the Elite Eight. One of those teams isn't going to make the Final Four, maybe two of them. You never know. A bunch of really good, grudge matches on the women's side that we're also looking forward to. Obviously, we just went over baseball and softball, and we're looking forward to a lot of really good stuff from them this spring. Men's basketball is going to be the talk of America with the upsets and the Cinderellas and the brackets and the, how long it takes for all the brackets to be busted. But nonetheless, it's been fun, kind of breaking it down, chopping it up. We'll see you hopefully this time next week. Hopefully on the other side of a couple wins for Virginia Tech women's basketball. Hopefully on the other side of a couple wins for Virginia Tech men's basketball, baseball, and softball, and hopefully get a couple wrestling national championships for Mekhi Lewis in his final NCAA tournament, and maybe TJ Store, Andoni, and Caleb Henson. We're rooting for you, but with all that being said, thank you for watching us. Thank you for listening to us on our 6th episode. We hope you have enjoyed. Hope you like, subscribe, follow, do all of that stuff. I say it every time. We're working on getting it up on Spotify soon. But nonetheless, it's been fun, and we will see you next time.